Good morning, everyone. Good to see you. Well, I have the privilege of making a really good announcement this morning. And Gerald, I got to him just right at time to start, so I thought I would just make this announcement rather than trying to get him to write down some things. But we have some new members with us, and very grateful to have them. The Lawlers and the Swans have been visiting with us for some time, and they have decided to work with us and be part of this congregation, and we got an opportunity to speak with them last week, and so we're happy to announce that Creighton and Tina Lawler have been placed membership with us and will be working with us, and also Mitchell and Alicia Swan and their children Journey and Jackson. And so I know most of you had plenty of opportunity to meet them already, but we're very glad to have y'all with us and working with us, and look forward to our work together in the kingdom. One other announcement that I'll make, through the summer we stopped having the 4:30 special topics class just because there was so much going on, but we are planning on starting that back today, and our plan is to do this every other week. That may depend on our schedules, Larson and I's schedule, and then also whether we have suggestions and topics to talk about every other week. But Lord willing, this afternoon at 4:30 we're going to talk about the topic of the Christian and self-defense. And how does defending yourself line up with Jesus' teachings? So we're going to be dealing with that. As we mentioned in the song that we just sang, and then it was also in the reading that we read earlier, Jesus said, "You are the light of the world. A city that's set on a hill cannot be hidden. When men light a lamp, they put it up on a lampstand. They don't cover it with a basket." And then Jesus would say, "Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven." Matthew chapter 5, verse 14 through 16. Well, my question is, what does that look like? What does it look like to have our light shine before men, or to be put up on a candlestick? In other words, where it would be able to project as much light as possible. What does that look like practically? How does that work in our daily lives? And what I'd like to do is just share with you a couple of recent examples that I think are maybe more typical ways of the way that Christians' light shine in a dark world. I was recently reminded of this story. I remember seeing snippets of it on the news back when this was taking place a few years ago, and I'd kind of forgotten about it, but I recently heard someone retelling this story, and it reminded me of it, and I thought I would share it. On September 6, 2018, Amber Geyer, who was an off-duty Dallas police officer, came home to her apartment complex. Now, she testified under oath that when she came home, she was very tired, and she got off of the elevator at her apartment complex and went down the hall and opened the apartment door to be startled by seeing a silhouette of a man in the hall. She was carrying a weapon, and she drew the weapon, and she testified that she said, "Stop, show me your hands." The figure continued to come towards her. She fired twice, in which the figure crumpled to the floor. It turns out that the man that she shot was a 27-year-old black man named Botham Jean. And Botham was unarmed. And not only was he unarmed, but he was in his hallway in his apartment. Apparently, Amber had gotten off the elevator on the wrong floor. And she had opened the door to Botham's apartment rather than her own. Now, I remember some of the snippets on the news and the media, and they were really playing that up as maybe racially motivated. Here was a white police officer killing an unarmed black man. I mean, that was one of in his own home. That was some of the headlines that were really flowing at that time. And so there was anger being stirred up against the Dallas police force and for not having better training, and there was racial tensions that were over this. And I remember some of those things. Amber Geyer was found guilty of murder. Now, at her sentencing, they asked one of her family members, the 18-year-old younger brother of Botham, Brandon Jean, was asked to make an impact statement. Now, this was the opportunity for the family to be able to express their feelings towards this crime that had been committed and kind of be able to state, how they felt about this before Amber was sentenced. And really, the idea was for, them to come up and plead the maximum sentence to kind of avenge their son and brother being killed and lost and all the pain that it had caused the family. So, on nationwide TV, Brandon looked over at the woman who had killed her older brother, and he said this, "Amber, if you are truly sorry, I can speak for myself. I forgive. And I know if you go to God and ask Him, He will forgive you. And I don't think anyone can say it, but again, I'm speaking for myself. I love you just like anyone else. And I'm not going to say that I hope you die just like my brother did, but I presently want the best for you. And I wasn't going to say this in front of my family or anyone, but I don't even want you to go to jail. I want the best for you because I know that's exactly what both of them would have wanted for you. And the best would be for you to give your life to Christ. I'm not going to say anything else, but I think giving your life to Christ would be the best thing, and that's what both of them would have wanted you to do. I love you as a person, and I don't wish anything bad on you." And then Brandon looked at the judge, and he said, "I don't know if this is possible, but can I give Amber a hug? Please. Please." And the judge was rather surprised by this and took a minute and kind of reluctantly said, "Okay." And Brandon got up and he hugged Amber, and they hugged for a really long time. And there were a lot of tears in the courtroom. And after the hug, Brandon said, "Can I present her with a Bible?" And he gave her a Bible. And the world was shocked by this act of love and forgiveness. The district attorney, John Cuso, who was the prosecuting attorney, in other words, he's the one that was trying to get the maximum sentence for her. He said this, "In 37 years, I was trying to go back in my memory and think if I've ever seen anything like this, and I don't think that I have. I think that young man was speaking from his heart. It certainly brought tears to the eyes of a lot of people in my office as we were watching it, and I know it did here in the courtroom as well. I think that's an amazing act of healing and forgiveness, and that is a rare thing in our society today. That young man, 18, is a leader, and he should guide us in healing. That is what I think." The Jean family are members of the Lord's Church. They attend the West Church of Christ in Dallas, Texas. And Brandon let the teachings of Jesus Christ guide his conduct on the world's biggest stage to let his light shine. And the world took notice. That's not what they expected. That's not how you're supposed to react to those things. And yet, the world, when they saw that, said, "Ah, that's a leader." That's a leader. We may never have a moment where all the major network cameras are pointing at us and we have that one moment of influence that, like Brandon Jean did. Our lampstand may be smaller and may not be able to shine to as many people, but I think we still probably have a lot of opportunities. Let me give you another example. And this one you may know the folks involved in this. I recently saw a Facebook post by Megan Hester. Now, some of you know Megan. You may even be friends with her. You may have seen this post as well. Megan is the wife of Brandon Hester. Brandon Hester is the son of Jack and Leanne Hester, who attended Belgreen. Brandon grew up at Belgreen. They now live, I think, in central to southern Alabama. But the first of last month, they were up in Franklin County helping with the rustic youth camp. And on Friday, the last day of the camp, their youngest of 3 children, who was only a month old, Baylor, became ill. He became sick. And they noticed it through the day. But as the day went on, he became, sicker and sicker. By the end of the day, he wasn't eating and he was kind of lethargic. And they were watching him very carefully. They went to bed that Friday night, continued to monitor him and check on him through the night. Early Saturday morning, they realized something was really, really wrong. He was just nearly lifeless. As a matter of fact, they weren't sure that he was still breathing. The Russellville Hospital the Red Bay Hospital, being the closest hospital to where they were at, they rushed Baylor there. Upon arriving at the Red Bay Hospital, they couldn't find a pulse, and Baylor was not breathing. He was really just lifeless. They started CPR on him, and they were able to revive him, where they got a pulse back and he was breathing again, only to have him code again very shortly afterwards. Now, you can imagine that the Red Bay Hospital is probably not thoroughly equipped for critical child care on an infant. But they were able to revive him a second time. Realizing that they were not best equipped for this, they were scrambling to find a place to be able to take Baylor, and the decision was made to life flight him to Memphis. And I don't know why it was Memphis Hospital rather than Children's Hospital. The Hesters were more familiar with Children's Hospital, and so I don't know that they were all excited about it being Memphis rather than Children's Hospital, but that was the decision that was made. By this point, they realize how serious this is. They realize there's a very good chance that Baylor is not going to make it. And there's a very good chance that Baylor's not going to make the transit to the hospital. And to make matters worse, they will not let them accompany Baylor on the helicopter for whatever, I don't know if it's policy all along or if they just couldn't take another person, I don't know. But they were not allowed to go. So you can imagine being a parent realizing that your child very likely is going to die, and as this helicopter takes off, you're not on it with your child, and you may never see your child alive again. So now they frantically try to get up to Memphis, and I can't imagine how long that drive must have felt like it took to arrive there. They get up to Memphis, and Baylor is still alive. He's in critical condition in ICU, and they already have him on a ventilator. It doesn't look good. For the next several hours, it's kind of touch and go, and then he begins to improve. And by Sunday evening, he was improved enough that they were able to take him off the ventilator. By Monday, they were able to take him out of ICU. By Tuesday, they released him. Now, I try to give you that background information just because as I was reading her post, I could hardly imagine a more stressful situation than they had been through over the course of the last few days. And I could just imagine how frightening it must have been to take your nearly lifeless infant son to the Red Bay Hospital knowing that they were not equipped to handle such. And then the frustration it must have been not to be able to accompany him and travel with him as he went to Memphis, and then all of the other stresses and things that would have caused difficulty for him in that time. It's completely understandable why somebody who had been through that would vent a little bit on social media about their experiences. So as they left the Memphis hospital, here was Megan's Facebook post. Baylor gave us quite a scare early Saturday morning. We rushed him to the Red Bay ER, where they took wonderful care of him and literally saved his life. He was quickly flew to the Lebanon Children's Hospital in Memphis. The nurses, doctors, and entire staff were absolutely wonderful. They came up with a game plan to get him better. The facility and everyone we met there was truly incredible. Since we couldn't fly with Baylor, Brandon and I drove to Memphis. On the way there, We told a few family members and friends about what was going on, and soon after, we started receiving all kinds of messages. Messages from friends and families, but also from countless messages that started with, "You don't know me, but..." It was something I can't quite explain. We felt a crazy sense of peace. In the middle of all this craziness and not knowing what was going to happen, we felt peace. We knew the Lord had full control over everything going on, and we were continually being told Baylor was being prayed for. And we could feel it. I am so thankful to be part of the Lord's family. I'm also thankful the Lord is so gracious, and we still have our Baylor with us now. I really don't have the right words to show our appreciation. We are so grateful for each and every single prayer, text, call, message, for the support given to us over the last few days. I was struck with the graciousness of her words and her gratitude after such a stressful ordeal, because I don't think that's normally what I see on social media. Normally what I see on social media is someone talking about how, you can just imagine, a small town hospital should be better equipped than this. What kind of crazy policy is it that won't allow parents to ride with their children when their child's dying? You can just imagine all of the feelings that they must have felt at some point during this ordeal. And yet what they expressed was gratitude and praise to God for what had been done. I thought of Philippians chapter 2, verse 14 through 16. Do all things without complaining and disputing, that you may become blameless and harmless children of God without fault in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world, holding fast the faithful word. Or one of our memory verses in the high school class right now is Colossians 4 and verse 6. Let your speech be always with grace, seasoned with salt. Now, Morgan's Facebook page may be a much smaller lampstand than mainstream media, but it's a lampstand from which she shone forth her light. Turn over to 1 Peter chapter 2. I want to spend some time in 1 Peter chapter 2 because I think this is exactly what Peter is talking about, starting in verse 11 and 12, really through chapter 3. And we're just going to be doing some reading here because I think the text speaks well of this. 1 Peter chapter 2, and I want to start in verse 11 and 12, where Peter says, I beg you as sojourners and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lust which war against the soul, having your conduct honorable among the Gentiles, that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may by your good works which they observe glorify God in the day of visitation. Now you notice in verse 11 he talks about to abstain from fleshly lust which war against the soul. Well, what are fleshly lusts? Well, there could be any number of things. But you know what? Malice, vengeance, hatred, bitterness, contentions, those are all fleshly lusts that war against the soul. And the world expects that from people, looks for that in people. But Peter says, let your conduct be honorable among the Gentiles, that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may, by your good works which they observe, glorify God in the day of visitation. What does that look like? Well, I do think it looks like the examples that we gave. And maybe we don't ever have a national stage. Maybe we don't even have a tragedy that we can respond to in a very gracious way on Facebook. So what Peter does next is he goes through and he says, let me tell you, here are the ways that you let your conduct be honorable among the Gentiles. The way you respect the government. The way you respect the government. Look at verse 13. Therefore, submit yourselves to every ordinance of man, whether for the Lord's sake, whether they are kings as supreme, or to governors, or as those who are sent by him for the punishment of evildoers, and for the praise of those who do good. For this is the will of God, that by doing good, you may put to silence the ignorance of foolish men. As free, yet not using your liberty as a cloak for vice, but as servants of God. Honor all people. Love the brotherhood. fear God, honor the king. Then he's going to give another category that we can let our light shine. The way we submit to our earthly masters. Verse 18, servants, be submissive to your masters with all fear, not only to the good and gentle, but also to the harsh. For this is commendable, if because of conscience towards God one endures grief, suffering wrongfully. For what credit is it if when you are beaten for your faults you take it patiently? But when you do good and suffer for it, if you take it patiently, this is commendable before God. For to this you were called, because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example that we should follow in his steps, who committed no sin, nor was guile found in his mouth, who when he was reviled did not revile in return, when he suffered he did not threaten, but he committed himself to him who judges righteously. And then chapter 3 continues this idea. Look at verse 1. Likewise, in the same line of thinking, you wives, be submissive to your own husbands, that even if some do not obey the word, they without a word may be won by the conduct of their wives when they observe your chaste conduct accompanied by fear. And look at verse 7. Likewise, you husbands, dwell with them with understanding, giving honor to the wife as to the weaker vessel, and being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers may not be hindered. You let your light shine in the way that you treat your family, in the way that you treat your spouse. Look at verse 8. You let your light shine by the way you treat your brethren. Finally, all of you, be of one mind. Have compassion for one another. Love as brothers, tender-hearted. Be courteous, not returning evil for evil or reviling for reviling, but on the contrary, blessing, knowing that you were called to this, that you may inherit a blessing. And in the way we respond to people, when they say, why are you behaving like this? Why is your reaction to this so different from everybody else's? Look at what he says in verse 15. But sanctify the Lord God in your hearts, and always be ready to give a defense to everyone who asks a reason for the hope that is in you, with meekness and with fear, with humility, with thoughtfulness, having a good conscience, that when they defame you as evildoers, those who revile your good conduct in Christ may be ashamed. For it is better, if it is the will of God, to suffer for doing good rather than doing evil. There may be big moments in life when we have opportunity to shine the light of Christ into a dark world by the way we conduct ourselves, by following his word. And maybe we think, well, if I ever had that moment, then I would really make an effort to do that. But I think what Peter is saying here is, really every day you have opportunities. And they may not be big and grand. They may be small. But every day, in the way that you interact with your society, your culture, the people who are superior to you, your family, those who mistreat you, in every one, the way you answer someone, the way you speak to them, all of that is letting your light shine. When your life is guided by the principles and the commands of Christ, then the way that you do everything in life is guided by that. And it looks different from the world, and the world notices that. And in that, a light is shining in a very dark place. And the world takes note of it. It may be over years and years and years that those little acts accumulate until someone says, boy, there's something different there. Those people have something that I don't have, something that I need. And when the time comes, there will be those that will glorify God because they have seen your conduct. They have observed your conduct. So Matthew chapter 5, verse 13 through 16 says, you are the salt of the earth. If the salt loses its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? It's good for nothing then, but to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do they light a lamp for it to be put under a basket, but to be put on a lampstand, that it may give light to all who are in the house. So let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. That's our task every day. Not just when we have opportunity to stand before media cameras, but every day when we go to work, when we speak to our family, when we talk to others. That's the challenge before us. Let's let our light shine. So this morning we're gathered together, and I really do believe that our assemblies are an opportunity for us to trim up our wicks, to remind ourselves, that's right, we're supposed to be living by these principles. And that should make me different from the world in so many ways. And maybe this morning you realize that you need that encouragement to make correction. This is a great time to do so. Make that correction while we have opportunity together to encourage and to strengthen each other. As brethren, let us help each other to be lights. Let's remind each other. Let's hold each other accountable on those things. So we offer an invitation, and it gives you an opportunity that if there's something that you need prayers about, if there's something that you need encouragement with, if there's some correction you need to make, use the strength of the brethren here to make that correction and start off this week being right with the Lord and being able to be a light because you're following His word. If there's some way we can help you, would you come while we stand, while we sing? Thanks for watching. If you found this video to be beneficial, please follow us on Facebook or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feel free to share it with others that you feel like may benefit from it. If you need to contact us, please contact us via email at quinn.church@yahoo.com. Also, if you're in the area, we would love for you to come visit with us at one of our assemblies. Have a good day.